Good evening. This is the meeting of the Newcastle Zoning Board of Appeals. Today's date is January 30th, 2019. I guess we begin with a request for an extension. Name is Byrne. This is the first request. Are they asking for, do you know, Tom, are they asking for 6 months? Or
6 months.
6 months, okay.
I'll move we give them a 6-month extension.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Next case is Adler.
Good evening. I'm Mary Scott, the architect for the Adlers. I'm here tonight to ask for a front yard variance to reduce the required setback from 60 feet to 47 feet for the purpose of building a portico on an existing front stoop. The Adler home was built in the 60s with the prior zoning with a 50-foot setback. It actually sits up on a hill. I'll give you this in a sec. So it's not very evident from the street. It's also on a corner, and you can see from the aerial view that it's quite distant from the other houses across the street from it. The actual portico was designed in keeping with the architecture of the house, the neighborhood. So, fairly minimal impact.
So it's just going over the staircase that's currently
Yeah.
there?
Exactly.
So it's currently 53 feet?
The house is 53, and the portico, because of the angle and sticking out, will be 40. Well, what we requested was 47 for protection.
So it would be a small change from what is now existing.
Right, it's a pre-existing non-conforming.
Existing non-conforming legal.
Yes.
That's what you said, the zoning code was 50 feet then. Now it's 60.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this application? No.
Here. No. It's supposed to be 32, you can change the numbers around. That's big. I'll give it to you a second. You do that all the time.
I do, and you catch me.
Any
No, I don't mean that. I mean, I do it myself,
No.
transposing numbers.
No.
It's goes with the territory.
Any other questions for the applicant? I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll make a motion. I move that the Adler application for a 13-foot front yard variance for the construction of a entry portico be approved for the following reasons. This is a pre-existing non-conforming lot. There will be no undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. The benefit cannot be sought through other means. The requested variance is not substantial. There will be no adverse impact on the physical environment. There are no neighbors in opposition. This will allow the applicant to enjoy the changes to the front entrance. You'll have 6 months to start, 1 year to complete. We'll need a foundation survey prior to the start of construction.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, happy
Thank
variance.
Coogie?
Applying for a front yard variance as well for a generator installment.
Okay.
It's 28 feet, you've got the property, I also have a non-conforming, kind of an odd property line, so our property, there's really, every, I think, side is a front based off the way the property's set up, so I'm looking for a 28 foot, I believe it's 28 foot variance for that. 28 feet, yes.
So how did you come by the location?
The location I selected is the ideal installment for the electrical panel, so it is the closest place. We looked all over the property for the best place to put it, and it was the most ideal place to put. And it's set back, if you wanna, I can show, we selected a location that's behind trees, so it's not visible, at least minimizes the visibility from the road. But it is the most ideal location just for the electrical panels.
You mean the current electrical panel is close to it?
The box, yes. So that's where I want to put it is at the corner where the box is, yes. Yeah.
How is the generator going to be powered?
Propane.
Okay. Where, do you have tanks there now?
I don't have tanks yet, but we will get I think the offset's 10 feet from the line there, so we'll be able to meet
So
those
you
offsets.
don't have Con Ed gas in the street?
I do not, no, that's the problem. It's nothing, it's well power, I have a well and everything is done through electric, so when the power goes out, I don't have heat or water or anything, so I have a generator.
So in choosing the location, would this installation be visible from Cedar Lane?
It will be, well, there's trees obstructed, so it'll be partially visible, but not fully visible, yes, yeah.
And where is your closest neighbor?
If you want to come up and point out, so I've got a neighbor here, and we're looking to put it here, so there's a property here, this is the Fears property along this side, and then there's a neighbor back here as well.
Your property's surrounded by roads.
It is surrounded by roads, that's the problem, is I have no front yard, technically every side's a front yard according to the zone, so it's one we always have to, any modification, I always have to come in for.
If you could just, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Would love for you to
Okay.
speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Yep.
Do your neighbors have generators that you're aware of?
They do not, so we checked with the Fears before, just make sure they were comfortable with that, and they said, when the power goes out, they come over to our house, basically, so that's it.
How large is the piece of land that you live on?
How, sorry, excuse me,
How
sir?
large is the land,
It's a half an acre roughly.
and is that 1 acre zoning?
It's a 1 acre zone, yes.
So you're, on your app, you're looking for, you've got crossed off front, rear, and side for variances, but you're only looking for a front yard variance.
Front yard variance, yes, sir, yes.
Actually, all you have is front yards.
That's correct.
So we're just looking at one variance here.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sorry.
I thought so, but
It wasn't really a viable place for no variance.
Yeah.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak this application? Let the record show there isn't. Anything else?
Okay.
Anything else?
no,
I move that we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the application made by Drew Coogan and Joanna Mangiardo Coogan. 1 Cedar Lane for a front yard variance of 20 feet.
28.
28 feet, 28 feet, for the location of a generator.
Actually, it's a 32-foot variance.
It's a 32
Sorry,
foot.
yeah,
You
correction.
need 60, they only have 28, it's a 32-foot variance.
Sorry, correct, yeah, it was a 32.
Yeah.
So noted. For the following reasons, the applicant has demonstrated that this is the most logical place for locating a generator, considering the current layout of the property, its current electrical supply, and where the closest neighbors would be least affected. No neighbors have appeared in opposition. This will not create an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood. The benefit sought cannot be achieved by any other means. The requested variances are not substantial considering the circumstances and the lack of alternatives. The granting of the variance will not have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental condition of the property.
I went to the site to verify.
And the variance will also enable the property owner to enhance the enjoyment of the home and avoid issues and problems when electrical outages occur and affect his well water. For these reasons, I move that we approve the application. You'll have 6 months to start, a year to complete. You don't need anything for, you need a survey? No.
Generally not for,
Not for generator, okay. 6 months to start, a year to complete, and that's it.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Summit Development.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. My name is Charlie Shalliel with Site Enhancement Services, representing Summit Development, but then also Fidelity Investments, who would be the tenant in question. I've got some, I think they could just be a little different. Can I hand those out?
Sure, yes. In what way do you think they might be different?
Honestly, I think they're just bigger.
Bigger, okay.
Easier to look at. It's in the Chapacua Crossing Shopping Center.
Oh, it's in the shopping
Yeah, and it is right next to the Whole Foods. It's down at the very end, and that's one of the reasons why we're here. We're actually respectfully requesting 3 variances, and when I say 3 variances, I hate using the word variance because these are very minor in regards to, I guess, some of the other applications that I've put forth in other communities. We're trying to be respectful of the criteria of the location itself and understanding that the center is somewhat contained. We don't need big signs. That's not why we're here. What we're respectfully requesting is a sign that is 25 inches tall. The code allows for 24 inches. The reason, and if you look on, it's probably best illustrated on the second to last page. The reason why we're asking for 25 inches is because the crest or the logo itself in Fidelity Investments is slightly raised from the copy. It's slightly offset. The logo itself is 24 inches, but when you offset it that 1 inch, it makes the sign 25 inches. So our maximum character is 24 inches. So I believe we meet with the intent or spirit of the concept of the maximum 24 inches. It's slightly offset. The largest letter in the word Fidelity Investments is actually 16.5 inches. So it's a small sign set, and I hate to do this to you, but if I'm flipping back and forth in the package, and I hate to do that. On the 3rd page of the package, this tenant space is set all the way, actually in the corner of the development. It's 390 feet from the nearest ingress-egress point, and that's actually at the corner nearest to the Whole Foods. So we're quite a distance set back within the center. If we have to drop down lower, it takes us just, and going into standard sizing, it takes us down to a 13-inch crest, which dramatically decreases the overall impact of the sign itself.
When you say going into standard sizing, is that
Sizes we've manufactured for Fidelity.
the reason that these aren't made to order, then they're actually prefabricated in set sizes?
There are set sizes that we've tested out, the LED patterns, and yes, the sign manufacturer has set patterns and sizes with Fidelity, just like every national retailer.
It would be substantially or materially more costly to have to vary from your standard sizes.
Absolutely would. So, and again, it's one of the factors that we're not really asking for larger, we're just asking to offset and maintain the nationally registered trademark logo that Fidelity Investments has. One of the other variations that we're asking for is...
I'm sorry, before you go. So I didn't understand anything that you said.
I apologize.
Okay,
I'm glad somebody had the nerve to say that.
I just didn't get it.
Yeah.
So could you try again?
Absolutely,
Yeah, sure.
absolutely. So, and I will use the second to last page as an optic for this. If I can get my fat fingers to work, there we go. So if you look at the logo on the top,
Right,
the A, or the crest height, as labeled as A, is 24 inches. So if you notice, the bottom of the crest splits the I in investments. So it's slightly raised, so it actually goes over the I in investment, so it splits it in half, so the bottom of the I is lower than the bottom of the crest.
I see.
Hence, our logo, or our overall height of the sign is 25 inches. The code says 24 inches, we're just asking for that crest to be allowed to be that slight offset.
If the board references page 3, you'll see that 1-inch increment.
What are you pointing us to, Tom? What-
On page 3,
Yes.
Bottom
Bottom
left-hand
of
side
it.
of page 3
you'll
gives
see
the
it shows it by dimension.
gives the measurements.
Sorry.
The original package.
Well, or
No, the
page,
package that was just handed out. Page 4, I'm sorry.
or the one just handed out,
Page
yeah.
4.
Page 4 and 5 have the same.
Yeah, 'cause it's the same sign on the front of the building that we're proposing on the side, so,
So you want the crest moved up an inch?
just an inch. And it meets with our federally registered. I was like, wait a minute. So that's one of the variations we're asking for. These,
I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
So in theory, couldn't the entire scale of the sign be reduced so that it fits within the town's requirements, town code?
well, there's two ways to do that. We could drop the crest down, which then it goes against the trademark logo.
Okay.
However slight.
Right.
It still does.
Sure.
Or we could we could do a custom sign, which adds significant cost to drop down slightly. I would argue that we need that extra, any extra that we can get, even if it's that 1 inch, just because of our position within the center, because we are so far set back.
So,
But yes,
I would-
anything can be done.
sure, okay. But because I would say, if you think your location requires something, I'm not making a different argument for you, but in theory, I would think you would be here and say, geez, 1 inch, what is 1 inch? Give me 10 inches, give me 20 inches, give me something, much larger because of my location. But instead, you're here saying, give me 1 inch.
Right.
It's hard to fathom that.
Requires a
that
variance?
part of, no,
Oh.
no. The code requires it, but, that's going to make a difference. I understand the first element of your request, but not that 1 inch is going to make a difference because of the location and the,
I guess what I would say to that is if we're not allowed to do that 1 inch,
right,
we would actually drop down significantly larger, or a significant decrease in size. We wouldn't do the custom sign. And we would also not want to do that modification of the logo itself down to meet the word, because then that's violating the trademark. So, yeah, I could stand here and ask for a 36, because honestly, the majority of Fidelity locations that we do across the country, this is going to be one of, if not the smallest, other than the Kisco sign that we have, which is completely worthless, one of the smallest signs that we have in the country. So we don't want to go smaller because you're not going to see it, and we would go dramatically smaller, and we don't want to shift it down because
I get
It
the
violates the
the
logo.
shift. I
Right.
get that element.
I could ask for bigger, but I don't want
Well,
to,
no,
because
no, no.
I don't think it meets with the intent of
Okay.
what you're trying to do.
Okay, no, let's keep going then.
The second variation that we're asking for is the code states that the side of the sign needs to be the same color as the face. What we're asking for, and you can see it in some of the pictures, it's actually a very light colored building. It's a light gray building,
Right.
and we have white letters. Well, white letters on a light gray building isn't ideal. So having a white side to the sign also then clouds, also then obscures the legibility of the lettering. What we're asking to do is and this is just on the lettering itself, it's not on the crest. The crest actually does have the gold because it's 24 inches, so it's a little bit larger. We're asking to use the green color on the side of the lettering. Now, the fidelity, the way that the letters themselves are manufactured is atypical to what you see in standard channel letters. And what I mean by that, actually I need this piece too, is Fidelity doesn't use trim cap. So trim cap, imagine side of the sign, face of the sign. They usually go like this, and there's a plastic piece that then bolts into the side and then wraps around to the front so the face doesn't fall out. That's not the way Fidelity manufactures the signs. Fidelity goes with a very high quality look and feel to their entire presence, but their exterior signage as well. What they do is side of the sign, use a piece of acrylic, and they slightly route out the piece of acrylic so the sign actually sits like this. So there's no trim cap. It allows for a sharp illumination and a very crisp and clean line, and it alleviates the need to have that trim cap, which has a clunky, I guess, non-high-end feel to it. So that is one of the other variations. It's not only the color for the side of the lettering so that it doesn't get lost, because the vast majority of the people that are going to be viewing these signs are going to be at angles. There's really nobody that's going to be viewing the sign straight on, except the people who are, not really anybody, because everybody's coming around the corner from Whole Foods, or once those other retail shops across the way start to populate, we'll see who or how much traffic. The other thing that we're asking for, and due to the manufacturing.
Sorry, before you.
Yeah,
sorry,
absolutely.
So the side of the sign,
Yes, sir.
the code says, in your case, it should be white,
Yes.
and instead you want it to be green.
Right, just on the lettering, the Fidelity and the Investments lettering.
Right.
And
I
it
mean-
allows for the separation of that light-colored background to the
I mean, in
light-colored
theory,
face.
the only time you're probably going to see this is when you're looking at the Y or the F, right? You're not going to see it in other
And
cases.
some of the investment letters, so see the people who are over by the Chase Bank.
Right.
You're going to see the face of the sign, but you will see the actual aspects of the side of the lettering, just because it will allow for that separation off that light color background.
Okay. And you've obviously looked at this, I'm sure. But we're to understand that the green will make the sign more prominent in appearance than the white would.
You would absolutely allow for a separation. It would allow for a cleaner, crisper legibility because of that contrast from the facade itself to the face of the letter. It's not dissimilar to what Whole Foods has
Yeah.
next door.
I'm sure it's just me. The white seems to pop out to me off of the gray.
Really where it hits is the investment letters, because the investment letters are very small.
Yes.
They're 3 inches. So as an all-white feature, it gets very cloudy, very mixed when you're looking at it from anything other than straight on. You start to really lose the messaging.
Are these letters illuminated?
The face of them are, yes, sir.
Other Fidelity signs, are they always green around the letters, or they can be white as well?
Not always. The vast majority of them do have the green, because again, they go on, just the way retail environments are typically built, there's a lot of light-colored facades out there. Sometimes Fidelity actually does do the green lettering itself, which then does have a green side to it. We chose not to do green here, and we're trying to get away from the green lettering itself, because when it illuminates, it looks gray. It doesn't look green. So we've actually done away with it. So if I were to say a typical would be the green with a very light colored background with a white colored face.
And you're gonna have the green shades as well?
Yes, sir.
Are you planning that?
Is the code that it must be, the sides of the letters must be white or self-color to the sign?
Same color as the face of the sign. So therein lies our problem, is we've got the white lettering. So
So not to jump ahead, but is one of the variances you're looking for related to light?
no,
But this would obviously inhibit light to some degree, the green lettering. It would, if you had white sides to the letter, it seems light would probably go through that more easily.
Well, no matter what, white or green, we would use a metal, so it wouldn't,
So it doesn't.
yeah,
it's
it would
not
be
trans-
absolutely
okay.
100% opaque.
I want to ask the building inspector a question. Is there a particular reason that the code requires that symmetry in the side as the face of the sign?
Chappaqua Crossing has their own set of rules for sign requirements. When they set up the original development up there, they came with a separate guideline for everyone to make their size. The signs are based on square footage, 25,000 and over, and 25,000 square foot and under. You fall into the 25,000 square foot and under, that's why he's having concerns with a 24-inch letter. If he was more square footage, he could have a larger letter for his sign. And the guidelines are very clear of the construction of the sign, what they allow.
So these rules or these are code rules that are in place with respect to only Chappaqua Crossing?
These are only with Chappaqua Crossing for that one specific development.
And they came about because the town requested Chappaqua Crossing to present something to them that, and
Was a little unique to everything else.
Is Bill still the inspector over, I know he had been, is he still?
He is still there, yes, sir.
It seems to me that the town has been going around and around with this Chappaqua Crossing development for a number of years. They spent a lot of time and effort hammering out all the minor details of what's going on with the stores and the signs and the layout of the streets. And I mean, it's just ad infinitum, it's endless. And I think every tenant that has signed a lease there understands that it's a special place with special requirements and under special circumstances, and should be aware that it may not meet their exact requirements. So I'm having a problem. Even though it's only an inch, I'm having a problem. What I'd like to know, and you could explain to us, please, is what your option B is. That,
and the
according to
difference
my
in
sheet,
the
says no
cost.
variance needed. So why can't we go to option B?
I'm sorry?
I have a sheet here that says option B, no variance needed.
So-
Why can't we go to option B and save everybody a whole lot of trouble here?
Well, it's a whole lot of trouble, but it takes away from the look that Fidelity Investments and the customers in which visit Fidelity Investments expect to see at their locations. Option B is an all-white sign. Option B is going to get lost on the gray facade. Option B has a slightly smaller crest or a slightly smaller layout.
Okay, I see, that doesn't tell me that on here, but I
Right.
see what you're saying. All right,
So,
other than that, going to, leaving the sign, which, like you're talking about with the green and everything else.
Sure.
But reducing the dimensions to meet the code, you say are going to be very expensive to do. But if you look at the investment that they're making in their space, the little bit of a change to the sign, I don't think is a large percentage of their whole investment. I don't think that a financial hardship is a good criteria for granting this variance.
honestly, I'm making less of a financial hardship, and to the chairman's point earlier, yeah, I'm not here asking for 10 inches, but I'm asking for that 1 inch, because that 1 inch actually does mean a lot to us. Because a modification of that 1 inch modifies the corporate trademark, the corporate brand. Dropping that logo.
As a possible customer of Fidelity,
Sure.
maybe yes, maybe no, I'm not saying that. When I walk up to that store, I'm not gonna know if it's an inch bigger or smaller. It's impossible to tell. So
If the
why
crest,
not meet the code and save yourself a whole lot of trouble? Because that 1 inch is not gonna stop me from going into their establishment, and I'm not gonna look from across the way where if I'm coming out of Chase and say, wow, look at that. Now, if you were looking for inches, like 10 or 15 inches or something, then somebody could say to you, wow, from across the street, it looks humongous, or whatever. But an inch more or less is not gonna make the common, ordinary person walking through this shopping center take notice and say it doesn't look right, or it's wrong, or whatever. So my feeling is that the town board, the planning board, the architectural board of review spent hours and hours and hours trying to figure out how to do this development and make it in the best way possible for our town. Now, we're here to subvert all their work, it seems. And that may sound extreme for 1 inch, but I don't want to subvert all the hours of time they put in there and set a precedent for all the others. You know, you're new here. You're one of the first guys moving in.
Sure.
Now, we're going to have a lot of other establishments moving in there, and the next thing you know, we're going to be buried with people saying, well, you know, you gave Fidelity a thing, why can't you give me a one? And the other guy's going to say, well, you gave that guy one, why can't you give the other one one? I think that for two reasons. First of all, I don't think the 1 inch is a big deal. And second of all, I don't think that it's right to set a precedent so early in this development that may affect all the future tenants. So I'm very hesitant to just blatantly grant this variance without a second thought, quite frankly.
And I wouldn't ask you to do that.
Okay.
In regards to the 1 inch, it may not be a big deal for you. It's definitely a big deal for the trademark aspect. Will anybody notice walking up? I don't know. I can't say. I mean,
I certainly.
I think it's negligible, sure. But at the same time, it's a modification of a federally registered trademark logo. We try, and I've been working with Fidelity since 2007. I've done all of their exterior branding across the country. I can think of maybe one that they've had to modify the corporate logo. And it was for much greater than a 1 inch issue. In regards to the precedents, I don't think anybody's going to be able to come before you and nobody's going to spend as much time and as much money as we've spent for a 1 inch variance. If they do, they've got a reasonable fight, I guess, to put before you. So I think that's, we're asking honestly for the most minimal relief possible under the ordinance. The other thing is when the Architectural Review Board saw this package, they were very, I'm not going to use the word excited, but they really liked the look of the signage that we're asking for versus the type of sign that the code, mandates. So the Architectural Review Board, all members included, were very excited about the construction, the manufacturing, the look, the feel. They understood the gray versus the white, and the need for that separation because of the contrast in the elevation. So we've jumped through the processes to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And we are trying to ask for the most minimal relief possible. It's in why the center came up with a criteria such as this and brought it before you. I don't know, because I've worked with retail developments across the nation. This is a bizarre written criteria for any retailer to follow. And I can tell you, as a retailer who goes into these developments for not only Fidelity but other people, yeah, we knew what we were getting into. The developer said, yeah, we had to fight the fights with the municipality to get this approved, but by all means, go at it. We support you.
Hey, see, Tony, I have a slightly different feeling about the request, and I know that it bothers you because the standards were set out and everyone knew it ahead of time. But I think part of what we're supposed to be doing is giving relief from aspects of the code that don't necessarily fit every landowner or developer. In this case, as he said, it is a minimal change that they're asking for. It seems to me that the downside to the town of granting this is far outweighed by the detriment to the developer, the landowner, the property owner, by having to spend more money than he needs to, or to come out with a different, sign that's much smaller and it's not going to. And as he explained, they do have legal requirements, the trademark or patent registrations that they have to comply with. So I don't think it's that big a deal myself. I think it's something that a zoning board should be willing to do under these circumstances where it is minimal There's no harm to the character of the neighborhood or the development. They have no other way of achieving the end that they're seeking.
Sound like you're making a motion here.
Yeah, just,
Well, there's another variance you're looking for, correct?
Yes, we should get to the third variance in
I'm
here.
happy with where we're going. No.
That's one opinion.
No, understood. The third and final variance would be the total distance of not distance, I'm sorry.
The depth,
The
right.
depth of the lettering itself. Due to the manufacturing style with the acrylic face and the lack of trim cap, it comes out to just over 4 1/4, where the code regulates at 3 inches. Again, that's a unique criteria put in place by the developer, or that they came up with. But we're looking for, it's just over 4 1/4. The return of the letter itself is 3 1/2 inches, which allows, again, for the illumination to, if you've ever seen a Fidelity sign, the Fidelity signs are actually very subtle illumination. It's not an in-your-face in a bright letter set. One of the reasons why is the density, or not the density, I'm sorry, the depth. Can I come up with that word? The depth of the cabinet itself, or the channel itself, which is that 4 1/4 from face to back, because the LED is placed on the back of the lettering. So it allows for that soft illumination. The other thing is that the investment letters, because if you think about a letter that's 3 inches tall, if you made that letter 3 1/2 inches wide, it would be ridiculous. So those letters are actually dramatically thinner than the Fidelity investments, or the Fidelity letters themselves. Those are actually, I apologize. Where is it? I want to say it's 3 inches, but I want to make sure I get it right. Inch and a half, I'm sorry. So they're 1.5 inches thick with embedded LED in it. So those letters are actually dramatically thinner than the Fidelity lettering themselves. And that's just because of the manufacturing style. You can't make that small of a letter in this type of a manufacturing, so there's a different look to it and a different feel to it. So the Fidelity letters themselves are the only thing that we're looking for, that roughly 4 1/4, where 3 is allowed.
I'm sorry, in the application, you mentioned 4.6 inches. I think you just said 4 1/4.
I think
You-
my math was wrong when I originally did it, because it's 3 1/2 plus 11/16. Well, if you count the 1/2 inch separation off the wall, so yes, 4.6. So there's a 1/2 inch separation, because if you've ever seen a sign that's a letter set that's mounted directly on the wall, when dirt and so on and so forth gets behind it and then the water runs, you get the black streaks down the wall, which looks absolutely terrible. That's not what you're looking for, that's not what we're looking for. So we set our letters a 1/2 inch off the wall, so all of that moisture and all of that water and all of that dirt and all that can just wash straight down the elevation and doesn't get trapped.
So that
1/2 inch?
that 1/2 inch is included in the depth?
In my calculation, yes, that I've asked for in the relief.
The code does not speak to the back spacing. It only goes to the front of the letter to the back of the letter. So the 4 3/16 is his overall letter dimension.
Okay.
So, yeah, we can take that 1/2 inch, and I apologize for including it in there.
And 3 is what is allowed?
Correct.
Okay. Did the ARB, I don't think I saw anything, did the ARB address anything here to the zoning board in terms of their?
They did not. They just,
Okay.
gave him a thumbs up, if you will, on his trademark logo and the processes that they were going to see.
Right, okay.
How about the planning board? Did they have any input on this?
They
Or
were
are
not-
they even involved with something like this?
They wouldn't be involved other than the initial setup of the guidelines when they did the complex up top.
They were involved initially?
Initially,
Setting all this, getting,
to
because
make
I know
the
they spent
guidelines.
months and months, years on this thing. But are they involved in this particular case at all?
They are not.
They're not, okay.
I just want to check, you're not here to speak to this application? Okay.
So in essence, you're looking for a variance of 1.6 inches.
Correct, sir. For the Fidelity and the crest itself.
For the letter.
1 in 3/16.
1 3/16.
Tom-
3 is allowed, and he's looking for 4.6.
No.
No, he was including that space.
Oh, okay.
I
And that's
I
not to be.
apologize for the confusion, sir.
Can I speak?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Today I spent some time going through the lawsuits that this town and the developer had from 2004 on. There's been a tremendous amount of litigation between the developer and this town. And to Tony's point, there was a huge amount of work done by the town at great expense to the town in terms of money and man-hours that the boards of this town spent in hammering out the look and feel of this location. We spend a lot of our time granting variances on codes that are outdated and old. This is brand new. And for me to hear that the developer said to you, go for it, go for the variance, which obviously was a preconceived need for a variance during the course of potentially lease negotiations, it tells me that the developer feels that they have the right to pretty much do what they want in this town to some degree, which is disturbing to me.
If I characterize it that way, I apologize. It was, here's our sign package. They knew it didn't conform. They said, we
And as
will
did
off.
Bill. Bill knew very well, the building inspector, that he knew all the ramifications of all the signage requirements and everything. So this was all well-known. I think that we have one of the criteria that we have to deal with, Eric, is this a self-created hardship?
Sure. It's the same five-part test you would consider any variance under. They don't give a different standard for this.
So the Architectural Review Board has aesthetic standards that they deal with, which really, we're not dealing with that. We have a list of criteria that we have to meet in order to provide or grant you a variance.
Sure.
And this, to me, is a very clear-cut case of a self-imposed hardship. And I don't understand why, in this very brand-new development in this town, why you would need to modify that. And I think, to Tony's point, I think it sets a very bad precedent.
I think the letter height, logo height, sign height, call it what you will, regulation is less of a self-imposed and more of an interpretation of what the code itself was going for. I mean, 24 inches versus a 25-inch sign, the only reason why we get to 25 inches is because you draw an imaginary box around it. There's no element in our sign that's 25 inches. The only element, the maximum, the largest size, is 24 inches. It's just offset. So the imaginary line is what puts us over the 24 inches. It's not any element, it's not a larger letter, it's not a larger logo, it's not a picture like I'm sure other people would come in front of you with. It's just that offset. So I wouldn't say it's self-imposed, it's the interpretation of where or how it's measured. And actually I think the code says, I don't have it in front of me, but it talks to the height of letter, but then it says /logo. Am I correct with that statement? So, I mean, our largest letter in Fidelity Investments is the F, which is, I believe, 16.5 inches tall. Our logo, it's 24. It's the offset that drives us to the 25. If that box could be slightly skewed, we hit our 24. So is it self-imposed because that's our federally registered trademark logo, or is it self-imposed because it's the interpretation of how the code's written?
But you're here because you need a variance. We can't necessarily dispute the concept of the math of it. You need a variance. Our job is to determine whether it's correct for us to grant you the variance.
Understood. I guess I was just hoping that I could display how minimal of a request it truly is in regards to how the code and how it's truly measured, but with my statement. And to say, and I'm not here to defend the developer, but the developer allowed us to go for it, and yes, it was absolutely, this was our standard lease package. I'm not saying that the developer snubbed his nose at the municipality, that's not at all, and if that's what came across, I sincerely apologize. They have allowed us to seek this because they understand the importance it is to us. That's what I should have said before.
Gentlemen, if I may read this for you?
Sure.
Under A2 sub A, for tenants less than 25,000 square feet, individual letters and inline logos shall not exceed 2 feet in height. They're very explicit. Shall not.
Right.
So they're inclusive of the whole inline logo, not just the staggering of the letters.
How many square feet is your establishment going to be?
I want to say 7,000 square feet. I'm not 100%
So you're
sure.
not even close to the 25.
Oh, we're well under 25,000.
Like if
I
you were
mean,
like 24.5, I'd say, well, you know, right there. you're-
24.5, I've been asking for a much bigger sign, too.
I know, well, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to find a way out here for you. but-
I definitely appreciate that, any help I could get.
How much in excess of 3 feet in height is it?
He's 25 inches, so he's 1 inch higher than the 2 feet.
1 inch.
Because of the
Only because
offset
of
of the
the
investment.
crest.
That's the only reason. If we would drop that down to 1 inch, we would be, that would not be one of our
But
issues.
you're unable to because of the,
The federally registered trademark logo.
So I have a problem. I mean, I understand that these are rules. I mean, that's what the code does. It presents all sorts of laws and rules for property owners to follow and this and that, but people come to us all the time. I mean, you know, with requests for changes, and we're supposed to be weighing them according to the standards that are in the code. And I just don't see, you know, this is a commercial establishment, granted, but they're still property owners. They're entitled to the same considerations that the zoning board is supposed to give to all property owners. I just don't think it's something that's so egregious that we can't give them relief under these circumstances.
Well, I tell you, I came in here against it. Harvey's doing a good job of changing my mind. I just feel like, I know it's only an inch, but what bothers me is because it's so brand new and it's setting a precedent for all the other upcoming establishments in this development, and who knows what they're going to come to us for next.
We have to consider each of the applications based upon the standards, and, you know, one of the standards is the variance substantial. And
I think the
that's
only
always
precedent that
a,
maybe we're setting is that maybe, are we the first, is this the first variance that's to be granted for Reader's Digest development?
Yeah, no, they haven't been before us yet.
I believe so.
yeah.
Well, there's
So-
only, what is there? There are
There
like
aren't that many,
four tenants.
there aren't that many tenants yet, but
Right.
so that may be a precedent, but it's like saying, well, don't come to the board because, but that's what we're supposed to do.
I told you,
And the
you
tree sign is
dissuaded me.
good.
I mean, each of the individual variances might be considered differently, too. I mean, the board
Variance
has
is
the
This sign on
option
the
to
back wall
look
has
at
a
it that
yellow
way as well.
side to it. I don't know why. Do you know?
Is that against code?
Yeah. The two signs on the front, well, the sign on the front, the sign on the side, both have the sides of the letters match the face. The sign on the back, and I don't know why, has a yellow side to it, and then the face is blue and then white. Trust me, I did my homework. And the Whole Foods, does Whole Foods have the same requirement in regards to the side and the face? Or does that change at 25,000 square feet?
They're in a different classification. They're allowed a 3-foot height sign.
That thing's
All
bigger
the
than
other
3 feet.
parameters are the same.
So, and there's,
Two differ slightly on their sides of their signs also.
yeah, they have green on the side
They
and white
have
on the
greens on the
face.
side also.
So how did they get away with that?
They're larger.
No, it doesn't,
That's not against, it's against code.
I didn't mean to be a whistleblower.
You know, are they getting, it's not really that anyone's getting away with anything. These are such minimal and insignificant requirements. When you look at, I mean, there are sign standards that have to be followed, but I think the code could have been written in a way that maybe didn't require a developer to come in every time they had a half-inch difference in their standard signs. That would have been a smarter way of writing it, but they're not always smart in writing codes, and that's why we're here.
But what's the point of a code?
To set the rules and laws, but we're here for the same reason, to help people who are affected by the code and get relief from, requirements that aren't always necessary. What's the
You
need for this?
weren't here to hear the wisdom of Gabby Rosenfeld, but, he would say, we're all neighbors, living in a community, looking out for each other, and attempting to do what's right for the community.
I agree, however, I don't think that's applicable in this case. I'm not in favor or against it, but this is a commercial tenant, a very substantial commercial tenant. It's not your neighbor trying to put in a generator.
Sure.
I can't argue against that.
I don't
And
have.
we
a
certainly don't
generator.
want to put
No.
the deli out of business.
I'm sorry?
We don't want to put you out of business.
Well, we appreciate it. And I promise all the people that work there likely live in the area.
Is there any more discussion? Does anyone else have anything?
I'd like to interject one more.
Okay.
Under A3, it states, individual logos shall not exceed an average of 3 feet, 6 inches in height or width. And that's not classified by square footage of the building. So it does, allow a little ambiguity for his offset.
Can you say that again, please?
Individual logos shall not exceed an average of 3 feet, 6 inches in height or width.
What does that mean, an average?
Means if things are moved over, if he had 2 logos put together to make his sign, they could not be more than 3 feet, 6 inches apart from top to bottom. He's portraying to us that he's only 1 inch apart from top to bottom difference under section 3. So if you broke his sign and looked at it as 2 entities, he could be as much as 3 feet, 6 inches from the top of the crest to the bottom of the other letters, whereas he's stating that he's only 1 inch difference. So if you looked at it in a different,
So how does that jive with the fact that it can only be 24 inches, the sign?
it's part of the requirements that they've put in here. It does not,
That's where there's 2 separate logos, that comes into
Right.
effect, right?
well, I guess they could argue that that's 2 separate, it's not a letter, it's a logo put together.
I think all of these requirements, at the end of the day, if you were to look at their sign as compared to what's required, the exact specifications that were required, if you produce one of those and then took what they're proposing and put them next to each other, I think you'd be hard pressed to see any difference.
It would be marginal.
I mean, visually, a sign is supposed to be something that you look at and see. I think what we're being asked to do is insignificant. It's not going to make any material difference to the visualization of that sign.
I think in making the motion, we have to speak to the 5 factors and take a vote. Everybody ready to move forward?
Yep.
Yep. I move that we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I move that we approve the application by Summit Development LLC as agent for SGP USPF v. Chappaqua Retail Owner LLC for 3 variances related to the signage to be placed on the Fidelity Investment
Is it
Mm-hmm.
2
Building.
or 3, Harvey?
3.
3.
3?
3.
Says- I'm reading.
Depth, color,
Yeah.
and height.
Okay.
Yeah.
Depth and color, I have no problem with.
And let's see. Section 360, town code, and the retail building tenant exterior signage standards for Chappaqua Crossing subsection A2A, A5B, and A5D on the property located in the Office Park Retail Overlay Zoning District of Chappaqua crossing. Do I have to spell out the specifics of the three variances, the dimensions? Or can
Yeah.
I just refer to the,
Well, I think you can get it up. Tom has it on his denial sheet.
Right, it's right on the
oh,
denial.
all right. On your denial sheet.
Thank you, Heather. You don't have the 24 inches,
All right, thank you.
24 inches, 25 inches.
Application has been made to install a sign on the Fidelity Investment Building. The applicant is being denied under building signage subsections 2A. Shall not exceed, what are they asking for?
They're asking for 25
Oh,
inches.
so
For 24
instead of
inches
2
is allowed.
feet, the applicant is requesting 25 inches. In section 5B, the lighting from interior signs should be no more than 3 inches deep, and the applicant is requesting
4 3/16.
4 3/16.
Yes, sir.
And with respect to section 5D, the sign shall be individual letters or logos without raceways and individual power source per letter. Return of the housing shall not match the color of the front sign. And the applicant is requesting that the side of the signage, the letters be green instead of the same color as the frontage. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I move that we approve those for the following reasons. The applicant has demonstrated that the requirements that they are, the standards that they're required to be following, that are producing the necessity for the variance are dictated by registered trademarks and trademarks of the logo. To make the changes that are required by the code would require them to breach those requirements, which they can't do legally, or to create a sign that is much smaller or and not as advantageous to them as a tenant and occupant. The requested changes are minimal, are not likely to be noticed by anyone visually as being different from those that are required by the code. The benefits sought cannot be achieved through any other means. The requested variance is not substantial under these circumstances. The granting of the variance will not have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental condition of the neighborhood or property. There have been no neighbors who have appeared or written in opposition to the application. The variance will enhance the enjoyment of the property owner's use of the property and its value to the property owner. For these reasons, I move that we approve the application. Any other, do we need timings on this? What type of timing, 6 months or
We're gonna be open in April, so
6 months. Yes.
6 months to start and a year to complete?
absolutely.
I'll second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Can I just explain my
Yeah,
vote?
yeah, you should
No,
have
no.
a discussion if.
I don't want a
there's gonna be-
discussion, I'm going to vote, but I would just wanted to put on the record that we have 3 variances that are taken as one. If they were split, I would vote differently. But I have no problem with the sign color, the edges, I have no problem with the depth, I had a problem with the height. 2 out of 3 wins. So reluctantly, I'm going to vote to approve.
So again, once again, all those in favor of the motion as made by Harvey, say yay.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Thank you. Have your variance.
Thank you very much for your time and definitely for the back and forth. Appreciate it.
Goetz? Did I say that right?
It's Getz.
Getz?
Yes.
Okay.
That works.
Getz.
I'm Amy Getz, representing the property owner Michael Getz at 140 Orchard Ridge Road. We're requesting variance to basically legalize the third floor that requires installation of a sprinkler system.
Is it a coincidence you have the same last name?
He is my brother. That would be quite a coincidence.
So the third floor exists now, correct?
It exists now? Correct, yes.
What was that question? I didn't hear.
Is it a third floor?
Oh,
Third floor.
is it already finished?
Yes.
Oh, it's already done? The sprinklers are in and everything?
No, that's why I'm here, is to request the permission to.
In connection with the granting of this application, if you were to do it, you would have to put in a sprinkler system.
Correct, that's what is
And that-
required by
that-
the code, excuse me, for the facilities.
And would the sprinkler just be for the attic area?
There will be, excuse me, a tank, a 300-gallon tank in the basement, and then from that, the sprinkler line would go up, excuse me. There would be 2 sprinkler heads in the living room, and then the stairwell leading to the attic would have sprinklers as well, 1 in each stairwell and 1 in each landing, and then the sprinklers in the attic.
So you're
So,
improving
yeah, it's quite a,
this
it's quite a system.
substantial variance in the safety of the building.
Yeah.
So does that mean the whole house, you have to sprinkle the whole house?
The egress from the attic to the front door. It doesn't include the kitchen or the other rooms.
So the variance is merely for
Yeah.
the sprinkler system?
Not that one.
Sprinkler
Use
system.
of the attic as living space.
Okay. And it's been built already as living
It's-
space?
The attic exists there now.
The attic exists, but does it exist as living space?
No,
We finished the floor and put some sheet rock up and led us to this place where legalizing it makes sense for the house because the bedrooms are rather small, it's an older home, and party interested in purchasing the house.
It is a habitable space.
It's constructed without a building.
That is correct.
Yeah, so it was
Right, so it was
They
done
did
without a
it
permit.
done without, it, yeah.
having a permit for it, right?
Not a permit.
Now, how did this come about?
It wasn't intentional, but.
The house was put up for sale.
Oh, so it's because of a sale.
Yes, and then the realtor included the square footage in the listing. He was not instructed to do that, honestly. And then the interested party came to verify the square footage, saw that the attic was included, and so now we're trying to rectify that situation by legalizing the space.
So you need, they need a C of O for that space, right? Is that right?
That is correct, or they need to remove the space.
Okay.
Or remove the space.
Correct.
How long has the space existed as habitable?
I'm questioning what habitable,
When did you finish it?
How long has it been finished?
meaning sheetrock and.
Correct.
6 months, maybe. I mean, there was some sheetrock there, but then we went and replaced it in order to make it more aesthetically pleasing.
Who did the work?
I was a GC,
You were the GC?
yes. Yes.
Were you aware that the code required a variance?
No, honestly, it just, the space just sort of evolved, and I brought in another gentleman who's very much perfectionist, and why don't we do this and that, and then before you know it, we put up track lighting, and it's a beautiful room, it is, but I realize it's not.
Is there a closet in the room?
No closet, so.
So does that make a difference?
It's still habitable space under the building code, not the town codes. So they're going to need a separate egress window, a separate means of escape via ladder, getting them down to a safe.
You see there's a fire escape on the plan,
Yeah.
yeah.
We would
And-
be doing,
Thirdly, they need this fire sprinkler system by the New York State supplements and the ICC codes to get them to a safe egress.
But I see your sprinkler system is not connected to the main in the street. You have a pump system, a tank and a pump.
yes.
Normally, when we do sprinklers in town, they're connected to the water main. So what happens if there's a fire and it knocks the power out? Then your sprinkler system is dead. Do you have any backup system to activate that pump in the case of a power failure?
I'm not certain that's required by code. That's not something we've
Is that
discussed
something the
with my
code would require,
engineer.
Tom?
It's a 300-gallon tank. The
It's a
idea is to
300-gallon
keep a
tank,
reservoir.
and if there is no power, then there is no system.
There is no sprinkler. That's what I'm driving at.
We are required to have an alarm system connected to that, not a generator.
Which is also electrical.
So if the power goes out,
The alarm goes out.
they could have battery backup.
Sealed backup.
Right, but you would lose the sprinkler system. You can make it a contingency, a requirement that a generator be placed.
It's difficult, yeah, I know, but it worries me. As you
It's a
all
valid
know, when
concern.
it comes to sprinklers, I'm kind of hard-nosed about that, because it's for the safety of the occupants,
Sure.
for the safety of our firefighters in town, who risk their life on every fire they go to.
Understandable.
And I have a problem with people trying to get away with, I'm not saying you're trying to get away with it, but we do
Yeah.
have a lot of people that come in looking for variances for sprinkler systems when they're spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on a house, and a small percentage of the house is a sprinkler, and they want to not have it. And I've never voted for that.
Yeah, no, I'm,
In your particular situation, it's a little different than our normal sprinkler system, because normally, like I say, they're connected to the town water main. If the power goes out, your pressure is still there, the sprinkler system works, and it does what it's supposed to do. With a pump, with a storage tank system with a pump, when the pump fails, the system fails. So, for me, I would put a contingent in there that a generator should be installed, a backup. Not necessarily do the whole house, you don't have to put something in that will serve the entire house, but something to prevent that power failure situation from creating a safety problem for anybody trying to, whether occupants trying to get out or firefighters trying to get in
sure.
to fight the fire and do what needs to be done. So that's my feel.
I think you're correct in requiring that, but I think what would happen is they're going to have to determine where they want to put that generator, where it's going to be located, and they may have to
Give them
come
a
back.
variance for that, too.
Well, but I don't think she can tell us right now.
No, I'm not.
Oh, they'll have to come back,
So be it.
yeah. Is that right?
And you're talking about a dedicated generator.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, it would have to be, I would think that it should be a standby generator that, one
Now,
of
as far as I know, you have natural gas in the street,
Do you have natural gas in the street?
in that area.
Okay, so.
So you have no fuel problem, you can power it with natural gas.
It would be a-
You don't have to buy a 20 kilowatt whole home generator that powers everything in the house, which is a fortune to do, but the smaller one that would just handle that pump. If you want to go bigger than that, you have every opportunity and every right to do so.
Okay.
But to make the sprinkler system a truly viable safety system, you need some way to make sure that it works whatever the situation.
Sure.
And like I say, worst comes to worst, if there's a fire, it knocks out the power, then all that is for naught. You put all that money in there and all that effort in there, and we have no system. And so we have no protection of the occupants, and we have no protection of our
I
firefighters.
understand your reasoning.
Yeah.
And the fact that the fire alarm would be hardwired,
Fire alarm, it's fine.
That doesn't
that
reassure
doesn't
you
make any
enough.
difference. The alarm goes off, you have a fire, that's fine. It tells you that you gotta get out. But that doesn't, to me, whether the alarm is on or off, doesn't do anything for the sprinkler system. The sprinkler system is its own system to do a certain job. And if it can't do that job, there's no use putting it in.
understood.
Fortunately, you don't have to do the whole house. All you're doing is you're doing the top floor, you're doing the stairway down, and you're doing the egress. The front door, I guess it is, or the main
front.
egress. you know, in certain circumstances, you'd have to do the whole house, which would really be an onerous situation
Yeah,
for
this
you.
isn't enough.
You might as well do the whole house already, frankly.
No, not
For
really.
what? What for what?
You're talking about a dedicated.
Sprinkler or?
No, for the generator.
Generator.
Well,
I think so.
you're gonna find that the generator, the size of the generator that you're gonna probably be,
Major.
looking at will probably be big enough to also do some other stuff in the house. So it'll be an overall enhancement to your property,
Better to do it.
to have a generator, because it can do other stuff. It can keep other systems going, your,
Sure.
your
As a
heating, your, and
yeah.
everything else. And
It's
that's why people
worthwhile.
generally put generators in. And so, I'm not sure your purchaser would be unhappy with it.
No, I imagine not.
It's just gonna
This
add
is
a little
matter-
cost to, the situation. But,
Yes, and the timing as well, if we can determine
yeah, the timing is
the
gonna be
placement,
very
it's
different.
difficult to do without having discussed this at
You
all,
have a
but I'd
buyer
rather.
already?
Sorry?
There is a buyer already?
Yes,
Well,
well,
yeah.
foreseeable buyer. So if I have to come back again for the generator, it's not ideal, but
I need to interject about the fuel for the generator. Con Edison is installing a moratorium March 15 on new gas services. You may be forced to use propane as opposed to natural gas. It may not be available.
Is there a gas service to the house presently?
Correct, but they will
They
not
won't- they won't
address any
allow,
increased loads.
I thought they were just doing new services. They're adjusting the load as well?
Well, she will be putting in for a new adjusted load.
Because
by
I know
having a larger
about
meter.
the service moratorium.
So
Yeah,
you're
larger
current-
meter?
You're currently serviced by Con Ed
Yes.
for your heating system?
yes,
You have a gas heating system? Gas stove?
yes.
Gas stove, any other gas appliances? No, just the
We do
gas.
Electric washer and dryer.
Washer, and the dryer also
It's electric,
is electric.
yes. So it's,
So it's just the stove and the furnace?
but I'm not sure we have the additional headroom for the line.
And your current gas line might be big enough to service a small generator. Is that possible?
Most likely not. She probably has what's called a 250 meter, where they'll bring her up to at least a 500.
Which means they could cut the street and put the line in and.
They changed your service, you're saying? They put an upgraded service in?
I don't want to, I don't know if
Con
it's
Edison
250 or
was-
500, but
Because they've done a few there are
They have done some, so if you're fortunate enough to have been modified, you may be okay with the load that you're putting on it.
okay. But
Your
if-
licensed plumber will do the analysis and petition Con Ed for the increased load, and if the meter you have is large enough, then there's no problem.
Okay,
And if it's not, then they have to requisition a larger meter. And based on your service coming into the house, they'll tell you how large you can put on there.
okay.
And the other alternative is to connect to the water main rather than pump tank, which could be a huge job. Yeah. I don't know what size service you have in the house, but normally, normal residential water
Yeah,
services
that would-
are
that
not
would
large
be
enough
the-
for sprinkler systems.
The lesser.
But since you have a limited sprinkler system, you might want to explore that possibility. I think there's not a great chance that you could do it. There's a greater chance of doing the generator situation.
Generator in the tank.
But one or the other would solve the problem.
Just want to make sure the board addresses the variances at issue, which are the legalization, which would require a third floor variance here, which only 2 floors is permitted, Tom, is that the?
2 stories are permitted in the town code, yes.
Right.
So if I may interject, the adjacent neighbor has a house very similar, in design, size, square footage, lot size, et cetera, has this sprinkler system.
And the other, I'm assuming the other variance is the front yard, side yard, and combined yard, there's no impact on the exterior of the house. so
Well, one of my
those-
questions tonight was going to be what is the height of the house? Because your maximum height should be 35 feet. The existing house is okay height-wise?
They're not extending the roof line at all.
No, I know, but I just want to be sure that it is
Well, it's pre-existing.
It's pre-existing.
pre-existing,
Yeah.
doesn't
Oh,
matter.
it's non-conforming?
It's not conforming, it's on a 1/4 acre lot.
Okay.
The house itself is not
Yes,
conforming.
it's not
right?
conforming.
They're not changing the exterior of the house at all?
Correct.
Or they didn't change the
They
exterior?
did not.
But it is legal now.
It's legal non-conforming.
Legal non-conforming, so the third story that is there now is legal?
No,
No,
that's,
the height of
that's
the house
not.
is legal.
He
Yes,
added
the
that.
height of the house.
Right.
No, the third story is also there, it's legal, but it's not legal as a living space.
Correct.
What's being,
If the house has a third attic, the third story being the existing attic,
right,
the code allows for 2 stories. To use that as habitable space, we have to grant the variance.
right.
Of a third story for habitable space, right?
But I mean, we're not changing the structure of the house. It's
Not
not
at all.
being raised or
Right.
built on.
So where do we go from there?
I move that we close the public hearing.
We're not going to go ahead and,
All those-
I'm not so sure we're
Oh,
doing that.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
How are we going to handle the,
I don't know, you see, if we move on the variance and make it conditional on a generator or another, or, there's 2 alternatives now. There's not just a generator.
well, you could do a backup pump with batteries. I mean, if they want to get into that, instead of a generator, you should explore that. You could have a backup pump with a battery powered that keeps the batteries charged with your existing electrical system, and if the power goes out, the batteries will take over. Because you only have 300 gallons. They'll pump that 300 gallons out of there in no time. So that's another alternative rather than go into a whole generator. So maybe we could condition it on
A secondary,
on backup power for the pump, however you want to do it. We
Right,
don't care.
yes.
You could put a windmill out there if you want, as long as it's backup.
Or direct access to water. Or
Yeah.
or direct
Maybe-
line.
Or
I
direct
wouldn't go
connection.
with
I know the applicant, has a buyer and wants to move forward. It may be easier for the applicant to come back to you with a proposal of how they intend to provide for the backup power. I think that would be
Get it
sort of
all
a
done at
more,
the same
a
time.
cleaner solution than, saying, well, you have to develop something, that would be sort of a preferable as far as a condition of the ordinance, unless the board wants to give an open-ended condition here. So-
why are you concerned about just saying, look, there's a requirement that you have a backup
Right. If the
power
building is,
source?
I guess, it's
As
just as
opposed to
far as
having it come
future
back, right?
determinations.
I don't see the need to come back as long as we meet the requirement of any backup power source.
Right.
It can be a generator, it can be a battery
Exactly,
backup.
whatever they do.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
But we have to address the backup
Right.
You will
requirement.
determine that it's a
I
valid
will,
backup.
correct.
But I have the best interest of the future homeowner and the safety of the fire providers in mind. So I see
As we
it's
do.
a valid
Yeah,
point,
we
yes.
do too.
Just from the legal perspective, it's always better to be more specific, for the future, but but the board has the final determination. If you're comfortable with it,
Well,
then
if we
that's
leave the
fine. So-
backup power to the discretion of the homeowner with the approval of the building department,
Yeah,
That's
we're in
it.
good shape.
yeah.
In that case, we can close the public hearing.
Okay. I move that we close public
I'll
hearing.
second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Who'd like to make a motion?
Put it on me, right?
You're the fire expert.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the Getz application for legalizing a third floor habitable space in their house for the following reasons. The granting of the variance will not create an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood. There's no other method they can be sought the benefits sought can't be achieved by any other method. There really will be no adverse effect to the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. While this is a self-created hardship, the benefit to the applicant will far outweigh any detriment to the town or the neighbors in question. And we have one caveat to this motion, and that would be that the sprinkler system as shown on the plan will need to be somehow provided with a backup source of electricity in the case of a power failure. That backup source can be a generator or battery power, or if there is any other thing I don't know of, but if you can think of something that's approvable by the building department, we will approve the variance request. So you need to do some sort of a backup and get it approved by the building department, and other than that, everything should be okay.
Thank you very much.
6 months?
Well, yeah, 6 months to start, 1 year to finish, but I assume you want to go faster
Yeah,
than that.
jump right on it.
Okay,
Right.
we'll give you 6 months and 1 year.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, you have your variance. You're welcome. I move that we adopt the meeting minutes for the December 17th, 2018 meeting.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
For the combined yard.
We're off.